Why do you have trust issues? I have issues relating with other women because I have a terrible mother who either can't keep anything I tell her to herself, mocks me if we're arguing, or entirely misconstrues any given situation. Daughter's got a stomachache, gotta flip out and call her father and rant about her being pregnant. Daughter called up upset having issues with another family member. Console them now, make fun of them about it during a later tiff. Alternatively, call that family member and tell them everything. See daughter rinsing out hair dye of fully clothed friend who is a lesbian. Tell everyone you know your daughter's a full-blown lesbian. Trying to hook daughter up with government benefits in between jobs. Scream and humiliate her in public because she doesn't want to BS her way through her forms. Screw you, Mom. Perhaps a mother-daughter communication class is in order for both of them. Story 2. My best friend and my past both play into my trust issues. I'm a dude, my best friend is a girl. She cheated on all her boyfriends. And her current boyfriend she's been with for 3 years now, she must have cheated on him around 7 times. The guy has no clue. To him, everything is going extremely well. As for my past, I've been with a few women who had a significant other. The one that sticks out the most was when my buddy and this gal went to his place just to hang out. We drink a little and me and the gal end up going at it in my friend's bathroom for a solid 2 hours. By the time 5 a.m. rolled around, her boyfriend called her, asking her what she's doing, to which she replied without skipping a beat. Just watching YouTube with laughing on the sun and laughing on the sun's buddy. They ended up breaking up, but whenever I got into a serious relationship, that's always in the back of my mind. It's really easy to cheat. Some people can go about it as if nothing is wrong and just don't have any clue or lead. My best friend, the girl I mentioned earlier, has it down to a science. She's proud of cheating practically. Currently, she's some dude at her job. Just a few weeks before that, she was a dude in a cruise ship. She's going on a trip a few weeks from now, and guess what she'll be doing? Story 3. Because of my son of a witch friend. I was in 3rd grade and I like this cute girl. My friend and I go to the bathroom, and while we're in there, he asks me if I like anybody. I'd never told anybody anything about who I like, but I trusted this guy. I told him about this girl. This guy laughs in my face, walks out of the bathroom, and tells the girl. He then went and made her his girlfriend over the course of a couple days. He had no prior interest, just wanted to see if he could do it. Like, what the hell? I mean, we were in 3rd grade and all, but seriously. Dude took like 4 figurative craps on me. It did kind of work out though, because she eventually broke up with him and started playing house with me. I never asked her out because I was terrified, but it was good times. My best friend, different guy, would play her kid and she'd always send him off to do chores so we could talk by ourselves. Story 4. I was dating a girl and I thought things were great. However, there would be a consistent trend of her putting her own well-being above mine, and I was okay with that because I loved her. Then we would have intimacy anytime she wanted to, regardless of my own willingness. I wrote this up because she was depressed at the time and I was not okay with it, but understood. Then we broke up as she battled depression. We eventually got back together, but it was more of the same. You planned a fancy dinner for us? Well, I'm not feeling pasta tonight. Throw it out. Are you sleepy or busy right now? Too bad. I want to fool around. Eventually, it went too far. I was not only unwilling, but in an extreme case of intoxication and was not able to think, much less decide what to do intimately. When I woke up from this haze, I ended the relationship. She then told me how she feels like she wants so much intimacy because she was mistreated before. She told me this according to her not to let me feel guilt for her, but to make me try to understand. It's tough to trust people now. I want to date and meet people, but what if they're just like her? People with viperous backgrounds waiting to destroy me, bend me to their will to overcome their own issues with no concern as to my well-being. Story 5. Every relationship I've been in has ended because of cheating, except one. A few were just real pieces of crap guys that I should have known better, but one that really screwed me over was my high school sweetheart. He was the sweetest boy. He and I were together for almost 2 years and did everything together. We lost our V cards to one another, for each other's first loves. He had also been cheated on before, so I felt safe. I thought we would be together forever. Naive, I know. He started coming home with evidences, then he let a bomb drop on me that he had slept with some girl 3 months prior. Now he was in love with some different girl and wanted to break it off with me and be with her. I was devastated. The next relationship I was in didn't end because of cheating, but he was mentally cruel, was very controlling, and put down my self-esteem into nothing. We were in and out of that relationship for almost 3 years till I finally had the courage to walk away. Now I don't really trust men to stick around. Story 6. Where do I start? I've had countless friends use me before, but really got me to this state of mind would be my last 3 girlfriends. First one broke up with me to go out with a friend of mine. I was friends with that guy for 5 years before this happened, and he started claiming we were never friends in the first place. The second one introduced me to a new guy friend of hers that she said was like me in a few ways and that I could probably be friends with a guy. She ends up breaking up with me and going out with that guy. The last girlfriend was the cherry topper. She was the closest to me. She knew about how I've had bad luck with friends and past relationships. Fast forward a couple years and she cheats on me with one of my friends. After that, I can't trust any of my friends. Story 7. Well, my dad had a drinking problem, and my mom had to work all the time to pick up the slack or debt he created. But I guess my dad didn't have the self-awareness, and my mom felt too guilty or whatever for either of them to ever be able to tell me no. So instead, they said yes. Yes, they could do that. Yes, I could have that. Yes, that could happen. But they couldn't. I couldn't, and it couldn't. So the lesson I took away pretty early on was that people rarely come through for you, so you gotta do things yourself. And so I grew up into a teenager, then an adult. Never asked anyone for anything. I never looked for support or help or input, and always had to do everything myself. Except, once again, I couldn't. So I'd end up trying to make it all work totally solo until inevitably something fell apart, and only then would I ask for any help, when things were bad enough that almost people couldn't help. Once again, reinforcing my notion that you can't rely on anyone but yourself. And thus goes the vicious cycle of that self-fulfilling prophecy. I've got some awareness of it now, and I'm working on changing those behaviors or beliefs. And I made some progress, but yeah. Story 8. My father was a cruel man. Never worked a day in his life, but demanded all the respect in the world. He hurt me several times. My mother got angry at me for making him so mad. He was always under the influence. He had prescriptions for them that he would misuse. When he ran out before the next refill, he would rage. My mother generally remained emotionally distant or absent. Never intervened in any serious way. These things were never acknowledged as problems. A very common thing they do is to isolate those they hurt. Maybe they do it purposefully, maybe not, but there's definitely a trend there. I was never close with any of my extended family. I just never knew them. Strange, seeing as I had over a dozen aunts and uncles with a dozen more cousins of roughly the same age group. I saw them a few times a year. For Christmas, Easter, and the like. I was very aware of how much I felt as though I didn't fit in or how I never felt accepted. I thought I couldn't be. My older brother got into substances as a young adult. He'd be about 16 when this started. I'd be 12. They tend to be untrustworthy and will often strong-arm, bully, steal, or guilt family members into giving them money to get them what they crave, always lying about why they don't have enough money. You know this is wrong, but again, it's never acknowledged. You doubt yourself and struggle to even trust your own perceptions of what is going on in your family. Surely you're just crazy, right? I was insanely depressed and felt guilty for most of my life for feeling bad. I isolated myself to the extreme to hide how I felt. Predictably, when I turned 18, I started drinking heavily. Oh boy, was that ever terrible. It's been a decade since then. At some point in the past 3 years, everything turned around. I cut myself off from my extraordinarily toxic family and other old relationships. You get to take charge of your own life, and hey, you're happy. But opening up to people, mostly men, is damn near impossible. It's impossible for me to pinpoint a single reason. It's more the result of the collection of my experiences. Story 9. My girlfriend of 3 years cheated on me repeatedly throughout, constantly blaming me for any of the failings in our relationship. She cheated on me with one of my close friends and convinced me that he had tricked her into thinking I was cheating on her, and fooled around with him as a result. She never asked me about the cheating until after she had slept with him, though. So that was a bit of a double whammy. She lied constantly about things she did not need to lie about. For instance, I took a course in economics and learned how tax brackets worked, that not your entire income is taxed at the highest bracket you're in. She told me I was wrong, that she knew I was wrong because she balanced her father's checkbooks and that her father had a master's in economics. This kind of also jumps into the fact that she constantly put me down and threatened to leave me if I didn't cut off contact with my friends whom she did not like, except for the one she slept with. One instance that jumps out at me of where my trust was pretty hurt bad was when she threatened to break up with me because I didn't want to chauffeur her around. As a result of that, I felt physically ill and got sick. She just stared at me in disgust. Story 10. My mom is a liar, and so are many of her relatives. I was pestered in grade school until 8th grade, where I finally stood up for myself and slowed down. However, not one person stepped in to help me, except for one teacher I had a few times a week. They didn't tolerate the pestering. Aside from all this, I volunteer as a ring director in martial arts tournaments fairly often. The amount of score fudging by judges who favor their own students is ridiculous. I still have to write down those biased scores. I've been in tournaments where the entire sparring portion of my ring was completely unfair due to biased judging. I'm not even exaggerating here. There were 2 judges who literally only called points for their own students. The score difference was at least 8 points for almost every match, The scoring was only time-based. It was depressing. It was a 4-judge ring. I don't know why, it should have been an odd number. So those 2 judges basically controlled the scoring, and I couldn't say anything about it. Along with this, the parents of some students think their child is the center of the universe and have to confront me about it when I'm literally just recording the scores given by the judges. And to top it all off, 90% of the people I mentioned have no idea they've done anything wrong. And people don't even know they've done wrong. What can they do about it? I can't do anything. Hey, at least he's not the one judging. Imagine having to deal with those entitled parents all the time. Story 11. I'm not sure trust issues is quite the right word for it, but I absolutely cannot stand negative surprises, and it has to do with the fact that I had no idea my parents' divorce was coming. As far as I knew, my parents were getting along pretty well. They would have small fights every now and then, but they were nothing serious. At least the ones that I saw. The first fight that seemed serious involved my dad slamming down his chair while the rest of us were eating dinner and yelling at my mom. Neither my brother nor I had seen my dad this angry or violent. He never laid a hand on any of us, and still didn't. To his credit, my mom ended up being kicked out of the house. Perhaps a week later, they were divorced and living in separate houses. Being blindsided at such a crucial developmental stage, I was towards the end of middle school, getting ready to go into high school, did wonders for my self-esteem, and I get really anxious and stressed to the point of panic attacks when I think people are hiding things from me, for my own good. Story 12. In primary school, I came to 3 kids I thought were my friends during the break. They were running around, catching each other. Completely oblivious to rejection, I joined the game, and one came up to me and said something along the lines of, "What are related?" or "What are you doing?" I continued playing with the others, ignoring me. Never again did I approach a group of people without them pointing interest in me beforehand. I triple check if I'm related every time I join a conversation. I barely initiate WhatsApp conversations. I'm afraid of showing interest in people. You'll never see me even close to socially intruding. Almost all of my socializing comes from people who attract to me. And to attract them, I spend enormous resources and effort to make myself an intriguing, interesting, witty, humorous person. Because if I'm not and nobody comes on their own, I'm stuck all alone. Just an example of how a tiny, small event can illogically mess up a person for life. Story 13. I fell in love with and almost married a diagnosed schizophrenic and malignant narcissist who stole my identity, emptied all my accounts, and screwed my neighbor before bricking my phone and computer. It all kind of built to this denouement really slowly over years, and then, poof, you're broke. All social media is being vandalized, you have no telephone or computer, and you can hear them in the next apartment against the wall adjacent to your bedroom. Also, she brought home a bedbug infestation and has been ordering $1,000 shoes in your Amex for months, but you willfully ignored that part of your bill and just paid it, because you're an idiot. Her and her family pretty much lied to me about her diagnoses from day one, but one fine summer, I guess she stopped taking those medications. That crap I mentioned was just the tip of the iceberg, too. Substances, shoplifting sprees, lacing the town with hate speech graffiti as a hobby. For Christ's sakes, I've said enough. And now I don't trust women by and large. She was such an amazing liar, I don't really know what's what in a sense. I don't have anything against women at all, however. They're not a monolith. I'm just aware of how badly they can mess my stuff up, as can anyone I let into my heart. I've even made an active effort to forgive her in my heart during the previous year. It was successful, in my opinion. But no, you can't get close to me. I don't want your number, and intimacy has been kind of ruined. I just don't want it anymore. Strangest thing. Story 14. Where do I begin? My father neglected to teach me the livelihood of how to grow up, be mature, and take care of myself because he couldn't do it himself. A failure, stuck in the past, blaming all his problems on everyone else. When he was forced to live on his own when he split with my mother, he manipulated me into moving in with him, and my family went along with it. I was the lightning rod for all his anger, hate, and depression for 4 years throughout high school. During that time, I was barely getting by trying to make friends. I was a tool to everyone because I thought the term kindness was a great thing to have. While every girl and guy were dating and fooling around, I was alone and desperate. There were times I admit I wasn't the greatest person, but I deserved a chance. Never got it. My friends would always get together behind my back and never include me. Then my most recent event is my dad ending himself and blaming it on my stepmom, who just bore my half-brother. I honestly don't know how much I lost. The only thing I can think of is just walking down the road to the field of work I've decided to go into a long time ago. This road is going to be alone because I'm going to remain alone for the rest of my life. And that's how I want it to stay so no one else hurts me. Story 15. Because I live in a city of millions and although I'm only in my 30s, I feel like I've heard it all. Out of jail need bus fare, cash for a ticket out of town, sick this, passing away that, hunger the other. A new charity on every corner. poorly Xeroxed Black Power magazines full of stars, insanity and spelling mistakes. Hey, do you have the time and some change? Hey, nice shirt. Spare any change? Do you know how I get into blah and spare change? Then you live in the same neighborhood long enough and you get to recognize a lot of these people. I was so hungry but won't take up an offer to buy lunch in the McDonald's you're standing outside of. Sick whatever, but I see you dumping your cup at the liquor store. Nowadays, it takes a lot to even get me to slow my pace, let alone make eye contact, let alone actually speak to anyone out in public. And it makes me sad because I honestly can't remember the last time I talked to a stranger when it wasn't a part of a transaction or an attempt at one. I can't talk without hitting half a dozen people, yet I don't talk to anyone I don't already know. Story 16. First time poster, though I would add something. I was a troubled kid early on. Around 10 to 11, I don't remember and don't want to. I was threatening to end it all in my house. I think I just wanted attention at the time, honestly. Not sure. Either way, my mother took it seriously and had me committed to a hospital. She left me there all alone with these kids and faculty who were just there to restrain the kids. I remember staying up all night when I got there, watching the highway from the top floor of this hospital, thinking each car light was my mother coming to pick me up and take me home. Needless to say, she never returned that night, or the next, for that matter. I got pestered a couple of times by some of the kids with some serious issues and was restrained by the staff when I acted up. She showed up about 2 weeks later, and when the staff had evaluated me to go home again, I don't think I ever really had the same emotional connection with my mother or any of my family after that. My behavior got progressively worse over the coming years. I went to live with my dad after that for high school. I still hate highways and hospital gowns. Story 17. Been cheated on by all 3 of my past girlfriends. The last one, when she told me she and my now ex-best friend were in a relationship, I reminded her that now her baby brother won't have a positive male role model. She snapped, ran away, and disappeared for 3 days. Soon after, I found they had eloped in Vegas and he took her back to Germany with him, where he was stationed. Oddly enough, at some point after each time I was cheated on, the girl attempted to reconcile by suggesting I'm still too nice to say no. And the families were absolutely devastated that I would no longer be around, especially the ones with kids who we'd babysit and I'd teach or play with. You can only step on nice people for so long before they turn into something else. Now I can't trust females my age, and I keep my male friends at a distance. Been single and dateless for 4 years now. I also have zero tolerance for mixed signals. After years of being told I'm too nice, but I'm also a schmuck, but I'm a nice schmuck, and all these other paradoxical things, I find the biggest turnoff to be hypocrisy in people. I get situations change, warranting adaptation, but when things change completely out of spite or immaturity, nuh-uh. Bye, Felicia. If you're enjoying the video, don't forget to hit that subscribe and like button for more videos like this. Story 18. I spent a long time being pestered, from the age of about 5 until I was 11. The thing about it was that everything I'd tried to do, bar getting my parents to go shout at the headmistress, was ignored by the majority of my teachers. The end result is that I don't like to show many emotions, and I have trouble expressing feelings. Emotionally constipated, as my brother describes it. In secondary school, I was the kid people went to when they had trouble in math and occasionally science. Around year 8 or 9, 12, 13, 14, several people started looking for ways to make me look bad, so I started trying to find out if there was anyone I could date. So I became very closed off and don't particularly like to tell people anything if they're not related to me, out of a somewhat irrational fear that people will use anything I tell them against me. The only people I really trust are my dad, interpersonal issues only. He doesn't need to know about how messed up I think I am. And my friend James. Anything. Story 19. Because one of my only friends in middle school turned out to be a messed up schmuck. He decided to do such hilarious things as make me angry because it was funny. Yeah, kid with anger issues. Hilarious. Full pranks like destroy everything I worked on when we were gaming. We did this a lot, and tried to repeatedly pressure me until I hung out with him again. One of my other friends who also spent a lot of time with us just sat idly by and watched this. After I finally ditched the guy for doing this, he started straight up pestering me at school. He'd spread nasty crap, chuck stuff at the back of my head. Those little eraser caps hurt when they hit right. And because he was that guy who everyone was friends with or liked, everyone took his side. I don't hang out with my friends as much anymore, regardless of how great they are, because of this crap. Sounds like he needed a good dose of his own medicine. Maybe a few placed wedgies would have taught him a lesson. Story 20. This one time when I was a kid, my mom and I were walking around the mall. I fixated on this toy car that I really, really liked, but my mom already got me another toy for that day, so I just took note of that for next time. My mom frequents the establishment, and the next time she went, I asked her to check the price of the toy car, to know how much it was, and hey, maybe she'll get it from me. I was so excited for her to come home. only to find out that the toy car costs X amount, which is expensive. I felt deflated, but was ultimately fine. Then this one other time, we went to another mall which had a branch of the first establishment, and I saw the same toy car. I looked at it and saw that it only cost less than half of what my mother told me. I was devastated that I didn't even want it anymore. I never truly trusted anyone after that. Story 21. Between realizing that I'm an afterthought or not even a thought to most people, having a childhood friend who I always spoke well of, not being able to look me in the eye anymore and making up excuses as to why he can't talk to me or follow through with plans. Now, I'll definitely be there for your 21st birthday and I'll bring everyone. Expect 40 of us. Organizes a big event. Turns out he's playing golf and only 3 people drop by throughout the day. I felt so bad that my parents paid for all the food and whatnot that I sent each person home with 1/3 of everything and told my parents that a lot of people came but had to leave for work. I learned that rum and vodka are good friends that night, and finding out that my childhood best friend actually despised me. Explains why when I told him I was in the hospital with illness X, all I got back was, good. His ex told me everything. I wish I knew sooner before booking a trip with him, only to have him drop me 2 weeks before going. I still went anyway. It was awkward, but not stressful. Story 22. Because people lie, and it does not need to be an important matter. Some people will lie about anything for no more reason than those were the words that fell out of their mouths. People lie, and until you prove to me that you aren't a lying piece of crap, it is always going to itch at the back of my mind. The worst part is, there's absolutely no way you can prove to me that you're not a liar. I know that. The best you can hope for is to prove that you haven't lied to me yet, and that's a lot of work. Story 23. Man, where to even begin? When I was 12, I found out my father cheated on my mother while they were engaged with his first girlfriend and that I have a half-brother living in Mexico. So any semblance of a normal, happy family that I once had was completely botched. Since we found out, my mother became a bitter and jealous lady who always picked fights with my father. Not an ideal home situation. I've always been a timid, geeky kid. Didn't get a lot of attention, was teased a lot, which made me have very low confidence and self-esteem, and my first boyfriend did not help matters. What started off as very loving and sweet became emotionally cruel. It made me feel fat and ugly, like no one would even want me more than him. He was such an attention seeker that while I was talking to him, I'd notice his eyes wander to some beautiful girls in the room, and I never felt like enough. The real shame about it is that I met a really wonderful person and my trust issues and insecurities pushed him away. Story 24. Because I was mistreated in April, while I was at the police station, I called my boyfriend of 16 years about what had happened. He immediately ghosted me. I was stuck in a hospital for a week. He refused to talk to me, after 16 years of being with him. Then after 2 months, I got a call from a mutual friend stating that he was accusing me of saying that he was the one who did it. I had to get a deputy to contact him to tell him to stop spreading false information, but he persists in the rumor. It made me feel like I was a criminal even though I was the one who was violated. I am now so full of trust issues that I don't think I ever want to get into another relationship for fear that I will devote years into it, only to find that the guy will ghost me again. He was my second boyfriend. I'm now in my 30s. He's about to turn 43 years old on October 17th, and I'm alone for the first time since I was in my teens. I feel betrayed, and I can't trust anyone anymore. Story 25. My mom used to purposely do things to anger my dad and make him yell at her. As a child, I didn't understand why, so when she told me he was cruel, I trusted her because I was 5 years old. I didn't truly know any better. My dad has also told me many things about my mom and how she's actually the cruel one. Now that I'm 20, I'm having a really hard time figuring out who was right and wrong. Both of them have lied to me and put me in very uncomfortable situations, which has caused me a lot of stress and anxiety. I'm so stressed that I'm not sleeping well and I can barely remember what day or year it is. I still live with them because every time one of my siblings moved out, they got yelled at for leaving. This has made me too scared to even think about looking for my own apartment, and I have no idea what to do about it all. I'm sorry for the long message, I just needed to get all of this out. Story 26. I was a social outcast in middle school, and then I'm 8th grade, and this really cute girl asked me to the 8th grade formal, which was a really big deal to us at the time. And then he had her friend tell me it was all a joke about a month later. I felt like I was literally a joke and never fully recovered. It caused a sort of snowball effect, where I never felt confident enough to make a move on any girl I was interested in after that point. Consequently, I was repeatedly friend-zoned. I know that this was the fault of my own behavior, and I don't hold it against the women. Now I don't really believe that a woman can ever truly love me. I'm still kind of wrestling with that now, but I know I'm still young and have a lot of time to unlearn these thought patterns. Story 27. He was my first relationship. I was stupid and 18. The first time he laid his hand on me, I thought I deserved it. And he cheated. Repeat 1 and 2. Took a lot of self-searching and willpower to get out of that relationship. Thanks to that combo, it's now hard to trust others. My husband puts up with a lot of insecurities. It's hard to believe you're worth something when someone else doesn't seem to think so and sleeps with his coworkers. I get through it, but sometimes it's hard to let him go to school or even out to the supermarket without worrying that he'll try and pick someone up. I don't let him know because it's not worth a small argument that usually follows. I trust him with all my heart, but I've been there once. It's hard to convince myself it won't happen again. Story 28. I was engaged to someone I thought was the love of my life once upon a time ago. I did my best to prove how special I thought she was, and in the end, it turned out that cheating was the way to go for her. I was so crushed and hurt when she did what she did, and she even tried to get people to make me out to be the bad guy. I just wanted to pass away in my sleep. But that's in the past. Add that to losing friends I would consider close, but not wanting to do anything with me anymore once they enter relationships or replacing me in general or petty reasons. Like, I got ditched as a friend because I was unable to go and see Suicide Squad with them. I am basically going on in life as a lone wolf, and I'm thinking maybe it's the best way to trust only myself and not push so much emphasis on trusting someone who may be a close ally in the future. Story 29. My only female friend used me. Other friends walked out like it never existed. Ex promised me he would never hurt me, then cheated. He also compared me to his ex while intoxicated before I found out. Apparently, she's much smarter and more attractive. My significant other's aunt took advantage of the fact my son and I were gone for a week and knowing the house would be a mess, called DHS. His mom took advantage of the situation and tricked me into giving my son up. I went into a horrible depression and stopped eating and just kind of checked out. And she rushed me into signing some papers even though I insisted on reading them first. I don't even remember the court date. Lastly, when we moved in, we only made friends with one neighbor. He had apparently taken substances one night and poured styrofoam and Skittles in our gas tank. We were already behind on rent and couldn't afford to get a cheap car or get it fixed. I had to walk my daughter all the way across town to school with a fractured foot. I avoid most people now. Story 30. Several of my childhood friends suddenly started pestering me for no reason whatsoever. I should have noticed the warning signs. They were pieces of crap who simply couldn't go a day without hurting someone else or treating someone else like crap. It was only a matter of time before I became the next target. Everyone else always has a motive. If someone is being nice to you, it's always because they want something from you. Trust is one of the most easily manipulated human emotions out there. There are millions upon millions of stories of people's trust being broken. It's incredibly common. If you're not careful, it will happen to you. Humans are like that. Selfish, oppressive, violent, and self-serving. A rotten species that ends one another by the millions. Story 31. My entire life has been a series of scapegoating and betrayal. I was also the weird kid, never felt popular, and never felt like I was good enough. I was pestered a lot in my childhood, which made me introverted and only speak to about 3 people in my classes. It never felt like the first choice. I felt like I've always had to work very hard for people to like me. Like Meg from Family Guy. No reason for disliking her, but they just do. I got dumped by my ex-fiancée of 4 years, 3 months after she proposed to me on New Year's Eve, telling me she didn't love me and saw me more as a friend with benefits. Despite texting every day, always saying we loved each other. My big brother is my parents' favorite. He's also the most successful and they talk and laugh at his jokes. Not to me, though. And then they wonder why I've gone depressed and don't trust when people give me a compliment. There's too much for me to write. But the point is, it's going to take a long and hard time to make me trust you. And even then, it will take more than that to make me love you. I don't want to be hurt again. Story 32. Mom would come in acting like a mother for a weekend, leave for a year, and I wouldn't hear from her, and then she'd do it over again, year after year. Dad married 4 times while I was a child and brought in a couple other women that acted like a stepmother for a bit. Dad was also verbally cruel towards me and my sister. Only person I actually trusted and let in and would tell when things were bothering me eventually got bitter towards me, cheated on me, and told me she hated everything about me. After high school, my best friends didn't talk to me for almost 2 years. Just worked and went to school a bit and played games, didn't socialize, had no one to rely on. All in all has left me with a mindset that everyone will come and everyone will go as they please. Get too close and they'll ditch you. If I let someone in, they'll run away. Slowly getting out of the mindset, if I let someone in, they'll run. And that's because of one of the best friends I've ever had, and I'm honestly scared she might eventually ditch me too. Story 33. Was common law for 15 years with my now ex-wife. Things weren't always perfect between us, but they were for the most part good. I wanted a child and was nearing 40. Had a good career and felt like the time was now. My partner, who had all along said that she wanted a child too, changed her mind. We almost broke up, but then she relented. Had a beautiful baby girl. After her daughter's birth, everything changed and she became cold and distant. I struggled for 7 years to try to make things work. The whole time, she wouldn't say what happened, but she said she was no longer attracted to me. My self-esteem took a beating during that time, making me a former shell of myself. I was living off crumbs. All I wanted was a family. Eventually left her and started dating. I found out much later she started having a long-distance relationship a year and a half before. She told this man she would have his child. I trusted this person for 20 years. How can I trust anybody ever again? Story 34. Well, I was a military kid growing up. I moved every 2 to 3 years, so I haven't had consistent friends before the last move, about 4 years ago, and I graduated high school. I'm finding out two big things. First, because I was yanked out of all my friendships with no closure, I still have some very, very close emotional ties to people, or my best friends wherever I'd lived. I haven't seen in years. When I recently met up with someone in person again, they had moved on and weren't at all interested in picking up where we left off. I didn't push it, but it really hit me how I have this crappy old image of my old friends, and all of them have moved on to other friends, and some of them are completely different people. Second, I can't keep friends for more than 2 years or so now. My last move was to a new school in my junior year of high school. Then I moved after high school to go to college. After 2 years, I moved back to the town I graduated high school from to save money and get a good job. But in that time, I had made best friends, but now I have absolutely no desire to ever see them or talk to them. I've noticed, with the exception of one person, after the third year of having the same friend, I just stopped caring about them and was ready to move on. This took a huge toll on a really good relationship I was in. We had dated for 4.5 years, which is the longest I've ever had a friend in person. But after the fourth year, I had just lost interest. It sucks. I'm thinking about going to therapy to work it out because I don't particularly enjoy sitting in my room for hours at a time feeling nostalgic for friends and places I haven't seen or been to in over 5 years. Story 35. I have issues trusting authority. One time, my dad called CPS on my mom, and the service worker talked to me and gave me his word that anything I said would be 100% confidential, and my mom would never know I said it. I opened up about her schizophrenia and how she picked up her son's ADD medication to use for herself. I got a call from her demanding to know why I told him everything I did. I called him over and over, left messages, but he never answered or called me back. He would, however, talk to my grown family members. I was around 13 to 14 at the time, so I wasn't a dumb little kid who barely knew how to operate a phone. To this day, if an officer, CPS worker, teacher, doctor, etc. says they won't tell anyone anything I say, I just can't believe them. I had a gynecologist tell my mom I wasn't pure at 14. I had a detective that was investigating my mistreatment tell me he wouldn't tell my dad why they weren't pursuing the charges. I didn't want to pursue it, but my dad was pressuring me to do so and didn't want him angry with me. But my dad said he called the detective and he was told they weren't pursuing because of me. I opened up to a school counselor or teacher about my mental health and they said they wouldn't call my dad, but they did. And I got in trouble for opening up because he thought if I told him I had depression and signs of being schizo, it'd go in my permanent record and everyone would know and they'd think we were a screwed up family. Parents, police, teachers, doctors. I can't even open up to my grandparents even though they've never betrayed my trust. I wish I knew how wrong all of this was when it happened to me instead of realizing years later. But even so, no one takes you seriously until you're grown and aren't really the ugly duckling anymore. I doubt a complaint from a 14-year-old would have done any good. Story 36. Because my parents divorced and 20 years later they're still hating each other for what happened. Because various ex-boyfriends have at one time or another tried to push me into having intimacy when I didn't want to. Because every year I have a bout of horrendous depression which tends to push a lot of people away. Even though I try so hard to battle it with therapy techniques. Because I try so hard to be there for people. Traveling long distances, putting off sorting out my life to go help them, changing myself to match how they are, and I rarely get the same effort in return. I don't even hate everyone. In fact, I think I love and empathize with everyone far too much, but I don't trust that I can keep them or that they will want to keep me. Story 37. My best friend in 8th grade had apparently been calling a bunch of people in school, pretending to be me and basically sounding pathetic and trying to humiliate me, all because the guy she liked, who was a close friend of mine but never really talked to her, asked me out. I even said no to him because I thought it would be messed up to date my best friend's crush. She did this for about a year and I finally found out when her former best friend told me. In 9th grade, she also sent herself a Valentine's Day gram for me. She said, "I miss you, I love you." Apparently, she showed it to a bunch of people and they believed I sent it. My parents never gave me money, so where the hell would I get the dollar for that Valentine's Day gram? Well, if you like these stories, here's more. YouTube thinks you're gonna love this. Catch you in that video.